I will defend her. The shout cracked through the marble courtroom like a lightning bolt. Raw, desperate, unbelievable. Every head snapped toward the man who stood trembling near the back. His gray uniform was wrinkled, his mop still dripping onto the polished floor, and his badge read Janitor in faded letters. No one expected him to speak. Certainly not the billionaire heiress collapsing in tears on the defense bench, and certainly not the judge whose brows shot up in shock. But the janitor didn't flinch. His voice, roughened by years of silence, rose again. Her lawyer walked out. Someone has to stand for her. And in that impossible moment, before anyone could stop him, the entire courtroom fell into a silence so heavy it felt alive. Hours earlier, no one would have imagined the day ending like this. Alara Winslow, brilliant, stubborn, born into a world of glass towers and gold-plated dinnerware, had arrived at court radiating a calm she did not feel. Her entire life had narrowed into this day, this trial, this accusation that she had siphoned funds from her father's company. She knew she hadn't. She knew someone inside the corporation had set her up. But none of that mattered when the media called her a fraud, employees whispered betrayal, and her father, too sick, too tired, could no longer defend her. Her star lawyer, Victor Dane, was her last pillar of stability. Or so she believed. Backstage, beyond the courtroom doors, Victor paced restlessly, fidgeting with his phone. He hadn't looked Alara in the eye all morning. She thought it was nerves. Only later would she understand it was guilt. I trust you, she told him softly, because she needed to. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And then he left, just vanished through the back exit moments before the session began. The judge called his name repeatedly. The courtroom buzzed. Alara stood alone, blood roaring in her ears as the prosecution smirked like they had expected this all along. Abandonment had a taste, metallic, cold, humiliating. She nearly collapsed. At the far corner of the room, quietly emptying trash bins with the invisibility only working-class jobs seemed to bestow, stood Jonah Reed. Jonah was nobody. At least, that's what years of life had tried to convince him. Years of jobs that didn't last, bills that didn't stop, and people who barely noticed him until something needed fixing. He worked nights and slept days, his dreams reduced to surviving 1 month at a time. But Jonah had one soft spot, one weakness, kindness. Even when it cost him. He had noticed Alara weeks before, during a late-night courtroom cleaning shift. She was crying alone outside a meeting room, her expensive coat draped like armor she was too tired to wear. Unlike most wealthy clients he encountered, she treated him like he was human. She said goodnight. She smiled. She even held the door for him once, an act so small it had stunned him. To Jonah, that mattered. And now, watching her being swallowed by a system sharp enough to slice through people with no hesitation, something inside him snapped. So when she stammered, I have no lawyer, and the judge prepared to adjourn the case with a tone that suggested this would not go in her favor, Jonah stepped forward. The mop sloshed on the floor. I will defend her. Gasps erupted. A reporter actually dropped his tablet. Alara spun around, her eyes wide, disbelief painting her features. Jonah, you can't. What are you doing? He didn't know. He only knew he had to try. The judge, ancient and stern enough to seem carved from stone, pierced Jonah with a glare. Sir, this is a court of law, not a place for theatrics. Jonah swallowed. I'm not trying to perform, Your Honor. But she deserves someone to speak for her. If you give me a chance, just a chance, I'll try my best. Please. People chuckled. Others scoffed. But there was something in Jonah's tone. Raw sincerity, the kind you couldn't fake. The judge hesitated, drumming his fingers slowly. Are you aware of what you're asking? No, Jonah admitted, but I'm aware of what happens if no one stands with her. Silence. Then the judge sighed, a long, weary sound that carried decades of seeing too many people abandoned by those supposed to protect them. Very well, I cannot appoint you as her lawyer, but as she currently has no counsel, I will allow you to assist her today in presenting her statement, provided she consents. Alara stared at Jonah, her breath trembling. You don't have to do this, she whispered. Jonah shrugged, awkward, nervous. You've been kind to me. That's more than most. Let me return it. Tears gathered in her eyes, and she nodded. Jonah stepped to her side, still holding the mop like a misplaced weapon. The trial resumed. To say Jonah was out of his depth was like saying the ocean was damp. The prosecution launched into a ruthless, well-practiced assault. They displayed financial charts, manipulated timelines, and painted Alara as a scheming heiress who thought herself above consequence. Their voices dripped with polished venom. Jonah stood there, sweating through his uniform, mind racing. He understood almost nothing about corporate law, but he understood people, and he could see the holes in their narrative, the way their confidence came from Alara's silence rather than truth. When the judge invited the defense to respond, Jonah stepped forward. I'm not a lawyer, he began, and the courtroom tensed. But I know what it looks like when someone's lying. And I know what it looks like when someone's fighting to be heard. He glanced at Alara, her hands shaking in her lap. She doesn't look like someone who stole millions. She looks like someone who's been scared, pressured, and alone. And if the evidence really said she was guilty, they wouldn't need to talk about her personality, or her upbringing, or what clothes she wears. They would just prove it. A few people murmured. Jonah pressed on. I may not know how to read those charts, but I know how to clean up a mess. And the mess here, the real one, is that someone set her up, and everyone stopped looking for the truth because it was easier to blame the person at the top. The prosecution objected, but Jonah surprised everyone, including himself, by countering with simple logic rather than legal jargon. If she wanted to steal from her father's company, why would she leave a trail so obvious a janitor could see it? Why would she beg her lawyer to defend her? Why would she show up today at all? He pointed to the documents on the prosecution table. Those files, they came from an employee with full administrative access. Someone who disappeared from work the same day the funds went missing. Shouldn't we be talking about that? The courtroom exploded into whispers. The judge narrowed his eyes. Prosecution, is this true? The prosecutor stuttered, fumbling through papers. It's irrelevant, Your Honor. The missing employee is not the defendant, but their access logs are the only logs matching the time of the breach. Jonah's heart pounded. He hadn't known that. It was just a guess based on something Alara had tearfully told him days before. But somehow, the truth supported him. Alara looked at him like he had moved mountains. Hours passed. Arguments were made. Records were demanded. The judge ordered a recess for both parties to verify new information Jonah had unintentionally unearthed. During the break, Alara pulled Jonah aside. You saved me. Jonah, I don't even know what to say. Don't thank me yet, he murmured, scratching the back of his neck. I think I mostly got lucky. No, you cared. That's more than anyone else has done in months. Her eyes softened, a softness Jonah wasn't used to being on the receiving end of. He gave her a small smile. I wasn't going to let you get crushed. Why? She whispered. Jonah flushed. Because nobody ever stood up for me. And I didn't want you to feel what that's like. Her throat tightened. Before she could reply, the court officer announced they were reconvening. When they returned, a storm awaited. Evidence had been found. The missing employee, Alara's assistant, had withdrawn a large sum the day after the theft, fled the state, and attempted to wipe the digital footprints. More damning, Victor Dane, Alara's lawyer, had been bribed to abandon her at trial, ensuring a guilty verdict. The courtroom trembled with outrage. The judge's voice thundered. Miss Winslow, you are hereby cleared of all charges. This court owes you an apology. Alara burst into tears, relief, exhaustion, and gratitude all crashing into her at once. Before she could think, she wrapped her arms around Jonah, holding him as though he were the anchor she had been searching for in a storm. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. But Jonah wasn't thinking about fame or victory. He was thinking about how her hands trembled against his back. Outside, when the chaos settled, Jonah tried to slip away quietly. It felt safer. Disappear before anyone remembered who he really was. But Alara caught up with him. "Where are you going?" she asked softly. "Back to work," he said, lifting his mop. "The floors aren't going to clean themselves." She stepped in front of him, eyes blazing with determination. "Jonah Reed, you stood up for me when the world turned its back. You changed everything. Don't walk away like nothing happened." He hesitated. "I'm just a janitor, Alara." "No," she said firmly. "You're the man who defended me when everyone else ran. And I don't care what uniform you wear. You matter." For the first time in years, Jonah felt something warm bloom in his chest, a feeling he had nearly forgotten. "Stay," she whispered. "Let me stand by you now." Jonah met her gaze, terrified and hopeful all at once. And for the first time, he didn't walk away. He didn't have to. The world had finally seen him, really seen him. And Alara Winslow would never forget the day a janitor saved her life, simply because he believed she deserved someone in her corner. Someone to defend her, someone to care, someone like him.